Part 94. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 931. Chapter 931, Don't Save Yourself from Death. Li Taihu retched beside her for a long time. Finally, she raised her head and met the eyes of her elder brother, who looked at her anxiously. What's wrong? Li Taihu shook his head. Young Master Zhang is so powerful. Just now, the flesh on a man's arm was almost cut off. Young Master Zhang took a needle and sewed it up like that. I was really disgusted by it. Young Master Zhang, maybe it's from the sky. I have never seen anyone with such a method. Our village has encountered many bandits. I have never seen anyone whose arm was just sewn up with just one seam. Li Shiniu hurried over, but before he reached it, he saw 4 people walking in carrying a person. Mr. Zhang, save our village chief, save De Wang. Li Shiniu stared carefully and saw that it was indeed Lin De Wang. Lin De Wang closed his eyes and was in a coma. Originally, he wanted to scold Lin De Wang, but seeing that Lin De Wang was in a worse state than dead now, it was very likely that he would not be able to save him. Just looking at the knife in his stomach, his intestines were already leaking out, and he couldn't bear it in his heart. Zhang Xiaoxiao glanced at Lin De Wang and said, "Bring it over here." The 4 brothers of the Lin family were the ones who carried Lin De Wang over. Lin De Wang's family already had 5 brothers in total, including him. They are all here now. Carried the man to Zhang Xiaoxiao, but the 4 brothers did not leave. Looking directly at Zhang Xiaoxiao, they knew the whole story best. Originally, Master Zhang taught them how to make snowflake salt, but they turned around and threw him away. They directly made snowflake salt themselves and sold the snowflake salt to the Wu family in Fukan, taking away the business of Jia village. Now that my brother has been seriously injured like this, when he comes to Mr. Jiang's place, if Mr. Jiang's heart becomes dark, he may not even survive. Zhang Xiaoxiao tore his clothes directly, and Li Shiniu hurried forward. Only he knows that Mr. Zhang in front of him is actually Miss Zhang. Treating Lin De Wang's injuries like this is like a man and a woman who are not close to each other. Mr. Zhang, forget it. One sentence annoyed the Lin brothers. Li Shiniu, what are you doing? How can you be a gentleman when you take advantage of others' danger? My brother's life is hanging by a thread now, and you actually told Mr. Zhang to forget it. What do you mean? Li Shiniu said angrily, what do I mean? You don't know what I mean. Even if your brother dies, he deserves to die. What is the reason for this disaster today? You haven't figured it out yet. Li Shiniu was not stupid. What happened tonight, and when Mr. Zhang asked them to sell salt to the Wu family, he reminded them never to say where they were from. These 2 were connected together. He immediately understood that Mr. Zhang had expected that something like this would happen, so they deliberately asked them to hide their identities. The people in Jia village have naturally always listened to Mr. Jiang's instructions to keep their duties and do their own things. But Lin De Wang was different. Lin De Wang wished that all the wealthy households in the city would come to him to buy snowflake salt. So they made it clear in a big way that they were the village chiefs of Linjia village. This was a good thing. Instead of recruiting the rich, they recruited all the bandits. The bandits knew that they had sold so much snowflake salt and had so much snowflake silver in their hands. If you don't look for them in Linjia village, where can you look for them? When Li Shiniu first heard about it, he broke into a cold sweat behind his back, and he was secretly grateful to Mr. Zhang. If Mr. Zhang hadn't told them, it would have been their Jia village who suffered the disaster today. The Lin brothers were stunned. What do you mean? Is today's disaster related to you, Li Shiniu? You are so cruel. Although my brother Li Shiniu is a little ungrateful, you will not kill him or kill so many people in our village, old and young life. You want to completely wipe out our Linjia village. They think wrongly. Li Shiniu was very happy. You are all pig-headed, And you still want to steal Arlgiakin's business? Do you think that if Arlgiakin really wants to this business back, won't we be able to rob it from you? Do you still need to use this method? You can do it. Who taught you the method of snowflake salt? Now that you are saying this, think about it. I have always told you and your eldest brother to never say where you are from when handing it over to the Wu family. You gave so much snowflakes and salt to the Wu family with such arrogance and fanfare. Those who are jealous are not only bandits, but also people from the government offices. None of them will take any chances with you. It turns out that it's a good thing for you. Just tell people where you are as soon as you turn around, and those bandits will come to you if they don't come looking for you. For those men in Ljiakin who still have the nerve to accuse us unjustly, think about what reason we in Ljiakin have to harm you. It's true that a dog bites Lu Dongbin, and he doesn't recognize a good heart. We came to save you with Mr. Zhang with good intentions, but you misunderstood us like this. You deserve it, and it would not be a pity to die 10,000 times. Li Tai was arrogant and did not hesitate to speak. However, the Lin brothers were completely speechless at this moment. Could it be that Li Shanyu was wrong? Li Shanyu told them along the way that they must not tell the Wu family where they lived or where they were from. They didn't understand it at the time, but now they understand that although the Wu family may not necessarily betray them, there are so many eyes staring at their deal. If they inquire casually, they will naturally learn from the servants of the Wu family. Find out where they are from. It's not something that should be deserved when people come to your door. It's because they are too high profile. Lately, houses are being built and wives are being married in the village, and every family is living a life of debauchery. On days like this, anyone who cares will probably know that there is money in their village if they take a quick look at them. This disaster was brought upon themselves. While he was talking, Lin Lao saw Mr. Zhang holding a needle to sew his eldest brother's belly. Pounced on him as soon as he roared. Mr. Zhang, please show mercy. Kneel down with a plop. Zhang Xiaoxiao glanced at Lin Lao. If you want to save your eldest brother's life, it's best if you don't touch me, otherwise I can't guarantee whether your eldest brother will live or die. The other three brothers of the Lin family looked over and saw Zhang Xiaoxiao holding a needle and sewing up his belly layer by layer. As if they were sewing with two rags, the three brothers all ran out in an instant. He vomited like crazy on the side of the road. At this moment, Li Shanyu finally understood why his sister had vomited just now. He also thought that Mr. Zhang just stitched up the wound, so what can he do? Girls just don't see blood. Now he realized that this has nothing to do with men and women. I couldn't help it either. He rushed out and vomited until they came back. Linda Wang was already lying there quietly, and his face seemed not as pale as before. Mr. Zhang has inserted an inexplicable tube into Linda Wang's body. One end of the tube is connected to a bottle made of glass that they cannot see. The other end of the tube seems to be inserted into Linda Wang's hand. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 932. Chapter 932, Do Something Big. Zhang Xiaoxiao washed his hands, put the burns, stab wounds, and various injuries together, and waited for all the injuries to be treated. It was already bright. The entire villagers of Linjia village are now gathered around the threshing floor. The moment Zhang Xiaoxiao washed his hands and raised his head, all the villagers were covered in darkness and knelt in front of Zhang Xiaoxiao. The leading clan chiefs from Linjia village had grey hair and kowtowed vigorously to Zhang Xiaoxiao. Mr. Zhang, we people in Linjia village have done such a sorry thing to you, which is unethical, and yet you can actually allow you to reach out and save these people in Linjia village regardless of past grudges. We are really ashamed. Mr. Zhang, is that truly responsible? A man of great virtue. Mr. Zhang has the air of a gentleman. All of us in Linjia village are here to thank Mr. Zhang for saving our lives. Zhang Xiaoxiao asked Li Shanyu to help him up. Dear fellow villagers, Everyone has their own opinions on who was right and who was right in what happened back then, but what is involved now is human life, no matter how much hatred there is between us. But human life is greater than heaven. These people have basically recovered now. It's almost the same: take medicine when you need to take medicine, and get injections when you need to take injections. But why hasn't the doctor you asked for arrived yet? I don't have that many medicines here anymore. Once the medicine is cut off and cannot be reconnected, these people's lives may really be in danger. Zhang Xiaoxiao used the only medicines he had to infuse fluids and give injections to a few seriously ill patients. But for others, if they didn't have cooperating medical treatment, they would have to rely on the injured to get through on their own. That is probably very difficult. In this era, catching a cold will kill you, not to mention that it is likely to be tetanus and inflammation, which can really kill you. Come, come, the man who went to ask for the doctor has returned. A carriage stopped, and an old man with white hair and beard rolled directly out of the carriage. His complexion was pale, and it was obvious from a glance that the journey was very tiring and the old man was almost knocked to death. How can you barbarians do this? Look at my master, his intestines are about to vomit out. Are you asking for a doctor, or are you here to kill someone? A little medicine boy jumped out of the car and hurriedly carried the master's large medicine box on his back while yelling angrily at the villagers of Linjia village who were driving the car. Looking at it like that, I really want to fight these people in Linjiakan. The villagers who were driving the car said to each other, "Doctor, please save people first. Saving one life is better than building a 10-level pagoda." It is really the people in the village waiting to save lives. The old doctor almost finished vomiting the gall water, and he didn't say anything when he looked at the other party's expression. The family members of patients usually look like this, waving their hands to signal the children around them to stop talking. Okay, stop talking and take me to see the patient quickly. When he saw the threshing floor full of patients, the old man was shocked. Why were there so many injured? However, seeing that all the injured had been given simple treatment and bandaging, I couldn't help but be stunned. He had never seen this bandage before, as some wounds on the injured arms were still exposed. An ugly centipede-shaped wound made him look a little shocking, but his eyes were filled with great interest. He has seen some doctors who treat wounds. They usually let the injured heal themselves. He has never seen such a method of stitching together. If nothing happens to him, he will recognize that this is definitely a wound that needs to be stitched up with a needle. Is it possible that an embroidery needle can be used to sew up the wound like cloth? Here, Zhang Xiaoxiao felt relieved when she saw the doctor coming. She had almost used up her medicine. There are not many pills left in the medicine box. She had to keep it just in case, but of course she couldn't contact her little devil now. It would be nice if the little devil could help her carry something with her when he comes over. There is no shortage of supplies now, including food and drink, but there is still a shortage of medicines and medical equipment. Zhang Xiaoxiao directly greeted Li Shiniu and left. Those who should help have almost done so. The remaining things are the doctor's business. Of the bottles of medicine for infusion, each person will only receive one bottle. The needle has been pulled out long ago. The rest depends on the doctor's ability. Li Shiniu drove the carriage and respectfully invited Mr. Zhang back to their village. Back to the village, the closed door was immediately opened. Some people on the wall had long seen their returning shadows and immediately welcomed them back. Once they heard about the tragedy in Linjia village, many people were frightened and looked at the high walls of their homes. Thinking about it, if it hadn't been for these city walls last night, those robbers might have stopped by their Linjia village to have a look, and they would have ended up with the same result as Linjia village. In my heart, I am extremely grateful to Mr. Zhang for Li Shiniu's fame and wisdom. The middle-aged men in the village have intensified their training. In their minds, protecting their homes and their families is the most important thing. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shiniu and other important figures in the village held a small meeting. Judging from the situation in Linjia village, they probably knew that there were many bandits around. It seemed that the bandits suffered because Linjia village helped them to avoid disaster. After all, Linjia village had recently become famous for making a lot of money, so many people are probably thinking about Linjia village. But once the news about Linjia village being robbed spreads, the other bandits should make other plans. At that time, I am afraid that the first one to be remembered will be their Linjia village. At this time, we can only step up and let the villagers practice. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoxiao sent Li Shiniu and several of them went out to the surrounding villages to collect some food. Storing more food can also cope with some crises that may occur in the future. For example, if the village is surrounded, they can still have food and drink, and at the same time, 2 old well diggers are hired to dig wells for them in the village. The only water source in their village is one well at the entrance of the village. Once the village is besieged, the water source may be easily cut off. It is better to dig 2 wells near the mountain to ensure their resource supply. Li Shiniu was a little embarrassed and whispered to Zhang Xiaoxiao that the money in the village had almost been used up, and the money that had been taken out was already spent a lot of money just to build those high walls. There are 400 more mouths in the village. Just for the food they eat, they also bought a lot of food. If this continues, they will really have nothing to eat. Zhang Xiaoxiao didn't say anything, and he just said that they were selling illicit salt again. Since everyone has money in their hands, and there are so many strong men in their hands this time, just do something big. They directly brought these private salt dealers back and transformed them into snowflake salt and sold them further into the pass. The rich land in Guan'ei is short of snowflake salt. But this will take time. Zhang Xiaoxiao needs a vigorous battle to scare away the bandits who covet Linjia village. They can leave in peace and contentment. Zhang Xiaoxiao dared to leave. You can also ask if there is any news about the 10th. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 933. Chapter 933, Door to Door. They were on the road again. There are 100 people, and about 50 people are left in the village. They are prepared to go into battle lightly. Although a lot of salt was used this time, they had a carriage this time. Zhang Xiaoxiao's 3 carriages, plus the 3 carriages belonging to the villagers in Linjia village, it is no problem that 6 carriages can pull 4,000 to 5,000 kilograms. Of course, it's okay if you can pull it a little more, but then the strong man will just push the cart and leave. These strong men were very confident. They once formed more than 50 people from 18 people and 38 others to fight against more than 200 bandits. Is it possible that they can't defeat bandits with only 100 people? They know the bandits around them best, but the largest bandit den only has 300 to 400 people. 300 or 400 people are not enough to make them timid. Besides, Mr. Zhang said that they should leave quietly this time and not give any news to outsiders, lest those people get the idea of the family members. With Zuyu from Linjiakan in front of you, all of you are not living with your tail between your legs now. The day before departure, someone came from their village. Linda Wang was carried here. The strong men from Linjia village came and cheered for dozens of days. Many of them came with wounds. These dozens of people at the entrance of the village are really a bit anxious to see. What do the people of Linjiakan want to do? Is it possible that you are looking for trouble? Li Shiniu received the news and immediately took the strong men in the village out. Linda Wang and the others cannot enter the village. The village gate is still closed. Linda Wang was standing there with someone supporting him. It had been 7 or 8 days, and the injuries on his body had already healed. When he woke up, the villagers told him that it was Li Shiniu and Zhang Gongzi who came with more than a dozen people from Ljia village to save them, including himself. If Mr. Zhang hadn't used special medical methods to treat him, I'm afraid he would have met the king of hell by now. He regretted it the moment he woke up. He had already remembered what Mr. Zhang told them when he told them not to tell others where they were from. They should be quiet on the way back and forth, covering their tracks and making more circles. Who knew that he didn't understand Mr. Jiang's good intentions at all, and thought that Mr. Zhang wanted to take advantage of Li Shiniu and the people in their Linjia village. Let them find no way to do business with each other, so that they can be held in their hands and work hard for them. Now I know that Mr. Zhang is really a good person. Having considered everything before and after everything, I have thought clearly and even thought about the way out. Now standing in front of the city wall of Ljia village, they saw the high wall and the strong gate of Ljia village. When they came here, they couldn't get in at all. The people on the city wall had already sounded the gong, and the village all the strong men in the city are now gathered on the city wall. Hold various weapons in their hands and look at their posture. If they dare to make some moves here, these people will take action immediately. And the people in Ljia village obviously seem to be much more numerous than before. At that time, when he heard that the wall was being built in Ljia village, he also thought about the people in Ljia village. They just had some money to burn. Wouldn't it be better to use the money to build houses for each family? Is it okay to drink enough after eating? Why do you need to build this broken wall? It cannot be used as food or drink, let alone to provide shelter for the tribesmen. It's not worth burning this money here. Now that I look at it, I immediately understand that building this wall is naturally beneficial. Even if you don't see it, even if the bandits come for a while, they won't be able to get in. When all these strong men get on the wall, there is no need to say what will happen next. The bandits have no way to do anything to others. If there was such a wall in my village, why would those bandits rush into the village in the middle of the night? Thinking about the things he did again, I really feel shameless and ashamed. Li Shiniu went up to the top of the city wall and saw Linda Wang. Village Chief Lin, what do you want to do by mobilizing troops and bringing so many people here? When Linda Wang heard that Li Shiniu didn't even call him Brother Lin, he directly called him Village Chief Lin. These words are quite harsh. Of course, I know that Li Shiniu has been angry with him for a long time. At the beginning, he learned how to make snowflake salt technology, and took the villagers to betray Li Shiniu. Now he brings people over again. No wonder Li Shiniu will be wary of himself. I am afraid that these people will feel bad about himself. Brother Shiniu, I was no better than a pig or a dog, and I did something worse than a beast. I betrayed Ljiakan, betrayed Mr. Zhang, and betrayed your trust, brother. In the end, you went to rescue us regardless of the past grudges. If it weren't for you and Mr. Zhang, brother, I don't know how many of us would have died. I brought these people today specifically to thank Brother Shiniu and Mr. Zhang. It is also to thank the brothers in Ljiakan for saving us. As he was talking, 3 carriages came over, loaded with all kinds of things. There are home-produced eggs, grains, vegetables, and fruits, all produced by the village itself, but these are the only things that could be plundered after their village was robbed by bandits. All the money had been robbed a long time ago, and a lot of food had been taken away. The food taken was some private goods hidden in the cellars of various houses. Hand out your hands so as not to hit the smiling person. Li Shiniu and his men hurriedly went down the city wall, opened the gate, and welcomed Linda Wang and others in. No matter what, I came here to express my gratitude. It's not like the two families have a deep hatred and are determined to fight each other to the death. They are all ordinary people, and everyone comes from a poor life. Although what Linda Wang did was unethical, there was no need for them to make enemies with others. Linda Wang and several elders from the Lin family village were sitting in Mr. Jiang's hall. Facing Mr. Jiang, who was sitting in the seat, Linda Wang endured his injuries and knelt down to respectfully kowtow to Mr. Zhang to express his gratitude for saving his life. Li Shiniu helped the person up. Mr. Zhang, it was me who was so blinded by lard that I did something worse than a pig or a dog. If you want to beat me or punish me, I, Linda Wang, am willing to sacrifice my life to atone for my sins. The villagers of Linjia village, they all listened to me. It was because of my confusion that I came up with this crooked idea. Mr. Zhang, I stole all this from you. I didn't expect that. I didn't listen to you, but instead brought disaster to myself and my clan. Mr. Zhang, we will never forget your life-saving kindness. We only ask that you believe in us again. We promise to be with Mr. Zhang, the Shiniu brothers and the villagers of Jiakan in the future. Linda Wang discussed with the elders in the past 2 days that the village was severely damaged by the banditry. Every household suffered serious losses, and the houses were burned down. The houses built before were almost destroyed. In addition, after being robbed, the village this time it was worse than in previous years. If they don't work together with Jiakan and start selling smuggled salt again, I'm afraid their life will be too difficult. This time there will be countless casualties in the village. There were 30 or 40 people injured, not to mention the dozen or so people who died in the village this time. Linda Wang really regretted it. If he had known that this would be the result, he would not have listened to Mr. Zhang no matter what he said. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 934. Chapter 934 Accident. We are all ordinary people. Brother Lin, I didn't want to say this originally. Mr. Zhang, it was out of kindness that he taught us these good secret recipes and methods, which can make us make money for our lives. What does Mr. Zhang want to live in peace? The result is good for you. You don't just lead the people in the village to go it alone. And he didn't care. Even if you suffered a disaster, Mr. Zhang was still kind and righteous. He didn't care about the original gains and losses and came to help you. We never even thought about what we got from you. Mr. Zhang said that we are all poor people and life is not easy. There is no need to make things difficult for others. We should work together to live a good life. Li Shiniu's words were something he didn't say out loud, and he had been holding them in his heart for a long time. This Linda Wang didn't listen to Mr. Zhang, and they suffered a big loss this time, but they must remember Mr. Jiang's kindness. Linda Wang was ashamed and said, Mr. Zhang, I was wrong. I, Linda Wang, am here today. I swear to God that I will never do it again. I'm sorry for Mr. Zhang. I'm sorry for what happened to you. I, Linda Wang, will be struck with 5 thunderbolts and be destroyed by heaven and earth. I will give birth to a son without a butthole. This is already the most serious oath. Mr. Zhang, I hope you can forgive me and allow us to work with Ljia village again. From now on, we will listen to you whatever you say. Since our 2 villages are neighboring villages, we must help each other. Otherwise, we people in Linjia village will really there is only one way to die. Linda Wang really shed tears of sadness. He was afraid that Mr. Zhang was really unwilling to accept him anymore. They were suffering heavy casualties and their vitality was severely damaged. They had no one to ask for, no money to ask for, and soon the government's taxes would be cut off. If you want to come to your door, keep going like this. They can't escape this difficulty this time. If the village's strong men are captured again, there will really be a dead end. Li Shiniu looked at the clan elders who were begging for help, and he really felt compassion in his heart. After all, the villagers, they are not bad people. Although Linda Wang had some evil thoughts, he was also forced by this hard life. We are going to sell smuggled salt again this time. If you want to go, organize some capable people to follow us and get through this hurdle first. Zhang Xiaoxiao knew from Li Shiniu's appearance that this guy had softened his heart, but she was not a hard-hearted person either. Besides, although Linda Wang is thinking about it, those poor people cannot be said to be bad people. They can only be said to have narrow vision, poor people, and short ambitions, and are illiterate. Naturally, they just want to get the immediate benefits in their hands. They suffered a big loss this time, and they will probably remember the lessons learned this time. Linda Wang and the others were overjoyed and hurried back to the village to make arrangements. Early the next morning, 20 strong men from Linjia village drove the carriage on the road. Linda Wang's health was not yet good, so he sent a brother to take all the strong men on the road with the people of Jiakan. And the explanation was very clear. When they came, they would directly listen to Mr. Jiang's arrangements, and they would do whatever they were asked to do. Don't talk too much nonsense, so as not to annoy others. This time the village collected 200 taels of silver, which took out all the silver in the village that was packed at the bottom of the box. And this time there was a carriage, so they were confident that they would go back quickly. Seeing that there were more than a dozen piles of new graves in the village, the people in their village felt uncomfortable. Especially this time, Linda Wang's younger brother Lin Erniu, who was leading the team, saw that Ljia village's number 100 young man was now out. Comparing this mighty team with the sparse 20 people in my own family now, there is a huge difference. The once powerful ones have been compared with others and can't even compare to Saturn. No matter what, they now have to look at the faces of Li Shiniu and Mr. Zhang. Fortunately, Li Shiniu and Mr. Zhang were not the kind of narrow-minded people. Instead, they paid more attention to them along the way. There were few of them and they were placed in the middle of the team. This was equivalent to the people of Ljia village protecting them. Lin Erniu and the others felt really bitter, having done such a shameful thing, and yet received such benevolent treatment. What is this called? This is called convincing others with virtue. For this kind of virtue, what makes them admire is that they are in admiration. This type of person is worthy of being a leader. Going directly to the salt field went smoothly and brought the private salt they needed. Anyway, both families had a lot of money. In addition, Ljiakan was quite generous this time. They directly took 2,000 taels of private salt. 10 carriages were pulling so much salt, and the rest were all men pushing tricycles. These people were not afraid of doing hard work. Now that their lives were becoming more and more promising, of course they were willing to contribute their efforts to work for the village. Especially when they heard that there are capable people in the village. Mr. Zhang is a capable person. The village chief followed Mr. Zhang and learned how to make snowflake salt in their village. After they settled in the village, they naturally became people of Ljia village. As you contribute more to the village, you will naturally get more benefits for your own family in the future. They dragged their children with them after traveling thousands of miles away. Anyone with a whole family who can escape here is naturally someone who is not afraid of hardship. The village allowed them to come out to do such an important job with the strong men in the village this time, so they naturally took a fancy to them. Although everyone knew that selling smuggled salt would lead to beheading, they were not afraid. Now, beheading is death, and not having food is also death from starvation. Being able to eat and drink well is worth death. Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shiniu were the first to sit in the carriage in front. The ride was smooth and they didn't see any bandits coming out. Of course it is also because there are so many of them and they are so powerful. How dare the bandits dare to show up easily? There are more than 100 people. With only 2 miles to go before they could reach the village, everyone felt relieved and began to sit in the car or walk on the road, talking and laughing with each other. After all, nothing happened in the village. As long as they didn't encounter bandits, they were familiar with the road and returned home without any damage. It's natural to feel happy in your heart. Even the novices were a little frightened when they followed Zhang Xiaoxiao and the others out, thinking that selling smuggled salt was a matter of beheading. What would they do if they really encountered an officer or soldier? Unexpectedly, we returned to the village smoothly all the way, so everyone was in a happy mood. Zhang Xiaoxiao suddenly stopped the carriage. From a distance, Li Shanyu saw smoke rising from the other side of the village. This was wrong, it looked like a house on fire. Everyone was excited. Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shanyu asked all the villagers to drive the carriages to Linjia village first. Linjiakan seemed calm when I passed by it just now, and there was no problem. The people from Linjiakan have returned. Their biggest worry is that the bandits are now heading towards Linjiakan. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 935. Chapter 935 Beating People to Death. When Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shanyu, with more than 100 people, reached the entrance of the village, they realized that the village gate was open. There are no signs of attack on the city wall, which means that it was not attacked by outsiders. You can breathe a little easier. But you can see the fire in the village. It looks like the house is really burning down. Zhang Xiaoxiao made a gesture to discuss with Li Shanyu, and everyone dispersed around the perimeter. Don't act rashly yet. The two of them sneaked into the village quietly to see what was going on. Aren't they bandits? Two people walked into the village and saw a group of 5 officers and soldiers whipping people with whips. The people in the village were all on the threshing floor, and no one dared to speak out. What are you looking at? Let me tell you about the head tax of 2 taels of silver per person. Including other taxes, the total is 3 taels of silver per person. Now hand over this money immediately. Otherwise, I will arrest you immediately. Walk. There are a total of 580 people in your village. After all, that's 1,900 taels of silver. Hand over the money quickly, otherwise I will have no choice but to arrest them. A man dressed as a master was sitting on a chair, holding a folding fan in one hand and wearing a scholar's elegant style. He looked at the villagers with contempt and threats. The clan elder hurriedly saluted, Master Wang, in previous years, everyone only had 1 or 2 or 5 pieces of silver on their head. How come it has doubled this year? How can the people in the village come up with so much money, and the 400 yuan in the village this year? Personally, they are all refugees who have just settled here this year. The government did not post a notice saying that newly settled refugees do not have to pay taxes. The people in the village are naturally very successful. There are a total of 180 people in the village. If these people had 1 or 2.5 denarii of silver, they calculated that it would be 270 taels of silver. In addition to the silver for buying salt, there was a total of 1,000 taels of silver set aside for taxes. Who would have known that this year not only was the head tax twice as high as in previous years, but the 400 homeless people were also included in the population that paid the tax. In this case, the village's tax money would have doubled several times, and the village would not be able to afford such money at all. Rich. Master Wang glanced at the clan elder coldly and said, You old guy, according to the new rules in the government, the tax rate for this year is 3 taels of silver per person. Of course, these 400 refugees are not refugees as you call them. As I said above, although they are refugees, I heard that they have been working in your village for more than a month. Since you can take care of their food, you can naturally pay taxes and money, so don't blame me for being meddlesome. I heard that your village is now rich and can afford to build such a strong city wall. How come you don't have money to pay taxes? If you really don't pay the money and come out, then don't blame me for being rude. The government prison will let you try to see whether your bones are stronger or the torture tools of our government are stronger. Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shanyu looked at each other and smiled bitterly. It seemed that their use of money to build the city wall also attracted some people's attention. They saw that even the servants of a small government office dared to sit on the ground and raise the price. Just because they were government officials, Zhang Xiaoxiao was really filled with indignation. The life of the common people is really too hard. There are bandits and various foreign invasions. It is still a border city. The life of the common people is really hard. Yamen servants in government offices still have this kind of virtue. One by one, they are simply scraping the ground, causing suffering for the people below. I heard that the emperor above has not done anything, and the ministers and officials below are even more corrupt. How can such a country manage the people well and let the people live a good life? Master Wang, the cost of building this wall is only a few dollars. We used local materials. We excavated sand and stones from the nearby mountains and built them together. It can be temporarily defended, otherwise bandits will come to the village all day long. Come and rob us. The barbarians also come to us from time to time to rob us of food, and we really have no choice. I just thought of such a crooked trick, but it actually didn't cost much money. These refugees have been settled in the village, and they are currently clearing up wasteland. It is good to barely give them half-full meals, but the village really cannot afford any extra money. Just be accommodating and say something nice to the master, so that this year's wasteland can be planted with food and next year's harvest will be good. Of course they can also pay the poll tax. Master Wang raised his eyebrows and said, "Who do you think you are? You asked me to go and say something nice to you. I tell you that you can't have less money in the past, otherwise one of you will be dragged to jail one by one." A Yamen officer pulled out a young girl with a bright smile and said, "Well, if you can't pay the poll tax, such a beautiful girl will be in prison. I will be happy." The girl was so frightened that she cried loudly. Several other government officials also laughed. "I just saw it. They had 2 cows in the village and took them away. This can be used for a lot of money. By the way, if we search again, I saw that there are many cows in this village. My little wife, the eldest girl, is quite beautiful. If I were to bring him back to the man's house, he would still be missing 2 concubines. The more you say it, the more outrageous it becomes." The clan elder was so angry that he blew his beard and stared. "You are government servants, how can you do this? And make us people miserable? Are you not trying to force us to death? Get out of here. What are you doing here, an old man? Get out of here. Otherwise, I'll kill you." Other government officials laughed almost maniacally. At this time, one of the Yamen servants actually went to pull Li Taihua. Li Taihua was only 13 years old, but she had really beautiful features and was considered a flower in the village. Li Taihua used to have her brother to protect her and not show up in public, so naturally no one cared about her. Unexpectedly, Li Shiniu and the others were not in the village and something like this happened. The man tightly held Li Taihua in his arms, smiling with his eyebrows crooked, looking quite smug. "Follow me and I will go back and enjoy your happiness." Li Taihua was in a hurry, so she stabbed the Yamen servant in the chest with a wooden hairpin. She was suddenly unprepared, and Li Taihua was doing farm work and had strong hands. The Yamen servant rolled his eyes, fell to the ground and died. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Master Wang was furious. "How dare you, a country girl, commit murder in public? Come and get me." Unexpectedly, more than 100 people rushed out in an instant, holding various weapons in their hands. Before Master Wang could finish his words, he was killed by Li Shiniu. More than 100 people surrounded the 4 government officials, and they all glared angrily. Li Shiniu just hacked Master Wang to death because he knew that Master Wang often confused right and wrong. If Master Wang is not beaten to death this time, I am afraid that their village will be registered with the county boss. If the county boss really brings the officers and soldiers from the government to destroy them, then they will be dead. The remaining 4 government officials had been frightened for a long time. They did not expect that the villagers in the village were so ferocious that they dared to beat people to death. At this moment, everyone is staying where they are, kneeling down and begging for mercy in order to save their lives. Zhang Xiaoxiao walked out. What should I do now? End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 936. Chapter 936 Reversal. Lishaniu looked at the two dead people. He turned pale. He was really in trouble this time. There was total silence in the village. They all looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao. The only person here who has some knowledge is Zhang Xiaoxiao. Other than Mr. Zhang, who else can give them advice? Zhang Xiaoxiao rolled his eyes. Since we have already killed two of them, we might as well kill them all without stopping. Without anyone noticing, who would know that they died in our village? Lest they go back and report us. As soon as these words came out, the four government officials were frightened. This is to kill people and silence them. They don't want to die. No. No, we won't say anything, really, we won't say anything. Master Wang and Gao Yaman, that's. The government officials were thinking about how to save their lives, and now they couldn't think of a good excuse even though their eyes were rolling around. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at them and smiled sadly. The four people were frightened so much that they began to think in a hurry. Master Wang and Gao Yaman were accidentally injured by bandits, and we fought hard to survive. It has nothing to do with Ljiakan. The villagers were stunned. How could they still talk such nonsense? That's not right. Gao Yaman's chest wound is not like a bandit's knife wound. Send the Buddha to the west, each of you will have a knife to patch it up. The four Yaman servants went up with knives and stabbed Gao Yaman's servant 4 times with a grimace. It was really cruel. This is equivalent to a certificate of surrender. This was cut by one of our own people. When the time comes, they will go back to the Yaman to retract the confession. These villagers can definitely testify that they were the ones who hacked Gao Yaman to death, and they have knives to prove it. Zhang Xiao pointed his little finger at Master Wang, and the 4 of them could only continue to make up for the 4 blows without doing anything else. At this time, even if they wanted to distance themselves, they couldn't. They were completely tied to the villagers in the village. Okay, everyone, please disperse. The 4 officials worked so hard and came down to collect taxes. They also encountered ferocious bandits. The extremely ferocious bandits were extremely ferocious and killed many people. Thanks to the bravery of the 4 officials. Incomparably, he repelled the bandits. But Master Wang and this official died in the line of duty, which is really a role model for our generation. In this case, we have to send these 4 officials back to the government office with drums and gongs to show our gratitude. The 4 government officials were smiling but not smiling at all, and their hearts were filled with coldness. The young Master Zhang and this group of villagers in front of them were so evil-hearted. Looking at how well people do things, they are almost tied to the village ship. Even if they want to go back and slander them in front of the county magistrate, they have no chance. And with such a big fanfare, if they want to change their story, wouldn't that mean they are lying? Several elders in the village immediately understood what they should do from the meaning of these words. Suddenly, the village became busy. Hundreds of villagers carried the bodies of Mr. Wang and Gao Yaman, beating gongs and drums. In front of them were 4 government officials wearing red flowers, beating gongs and drums, and carried them directly back to the Yaman near Yanmenguan. When the county magistrate heard that the villagers actually beat gongs and drums to send the government servants back, and then heard about such a good thing, this was a political achievement of their county. If a letter like this was sent to Shang Feng, he would definitely have done a great job. Even if Mr. Wang and Gao Yaman died, they still died in the line of duty. When you die, you die. How many people don't die in a place like theirs every year? Although his right-hand assistant Mr. Wang is gone, his political achievements are still there. A dead Taoist friend is not dead as a poor Taoist, and the credit still exists anyway. Master Wang is gone if he is gone. At worst, he will be replaced by another master. It was naturally his contribution as the county magistrate to report this kind of thing, and he was greeted with a smile for a while. The county government office is very happy and harmonious. The county magistrate is approachable and treats the villagers very kindly. The yamen opens to the south. Those who have no money should not come in. Who would have thought that when they first met the county master, he would be so amiable and chatting and laughing with a group of country people. The 4 government officials also had wry smiles on their faces and had to pretend to be serious. On the way back, one person was stabbed twice, otherwise Mr. Wang would be dead and Gao Yaman would be dead. It doesn't make sense that they all have to be tailed. Naturally, the acting must be more realistic. At this point, things are no longer up to them. In order to save the lives of the whole family, I had to pretend to be like the people in Jiakan, and this happened. In contrast, the villagers in Jia village pay taxes based on 180 persons. Moreover, the tax is paid in 1, 2, and 5 cents of silver. The county master will naturally not increase taxes on Jia village. This is his achievement. In the future, when the superiors come down to verify the incident, they will definitely go to Jia village. The matter of arbitrary tax collection must not be exposed in broad daylight. Naturally, Jia village followed the rules. Suddenly, Jia village was in the limelight. Other villages are envious of Jiakan. Several elders of Jiakan are also proud. This time they have gained face, and they also taught the rebellious government officials a lesson. Presumably, the 4 government officials had to keep their mouths shut after they returned. Speaking out will do no one any good. In the past, villagers regarded government officials as gods. For them, it is a majestic and inviolable official authority. But now I know that these government servants are also human beings, and these official servants are also human beings. As long as the methods are appropriate, these government servants who bullied them in the past are actually paper tigers. Li Shiniu didn't understand how things had developed to this point until he returned to the village. At that time, he killed Mr. Wang out of anger. Who would have thought that those officials would be so shameless and insult his sister? My sister killed an official and died. That was a more than deserved death. Since an official has been killed, the matter has become serious. What I thought at that time was to just stop doing anything, kill them all, and bury them on the spot without anyone noticing. Who would have known that they had done such a big thing? Go up the mountain and become a bandit. At any rate, they are not short of money now. Even if they are bandits, they can still eat well and drink hot food. But who would have thought that things could develop like this? Look at Mr. Jiang's move. The government officials worked with them to cover up the matter, and it turned out to be like this to the outside world. Not only was their village saved, but no one in the village was fine. The whole village had lingering fears when they returned to the village, but the clan elders held a small meeting with Li Shiniu. They simply said that they would listen to Mr. Jiang from now on. These are troubled times. Today they killed the officials, but they no longer have any respect for these government servants. To them, these people are just ordinary people. If they really face life and death, they are no more serious than ordinary people like them. Powerful. Since they can kill bandits and officials, what can't they do? As long as I can live with Mr. Jiang and have enough to eat. Mr. Jiang is a smart man and does everything right. Following such a person, they can only live a better life. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 937. Chapter 937 Wu Xiaomin. Li Shiniu came to Zhang Xiaoxiao and said, Mr. Zhang, thank you very much for what happened today. Mr. Zhang saved the lives of the whole village this time, which was even greater than the last time. What's more, this saved their families' lives. The trouble this time was caused by him and his sister. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled and helped Li Shiniu up. Don't say these outrageous things. Anyone who encounters such a thing will take action. Besides, I have lived in this village and regarded this village as the place where I settle down and live, which is equivalent to my home. Whoever bullies my family will be punished by me. I need to find a way to protect my family. Li Shanyao's eyes turned red after saying these words. Mr. Zhang can regard this place as his home. That means treating them as one of our own. This remark is simply sincere. Although Linda Wang and others didn't know what happened in Jia village, they heard about it later. The people in the village were just envious of the good luck of the people in Jiakan. Seeing that they had officials to help them when they encountered bandits. This official was stationed in Jiakan, killed the bandits, and helped the people in Jiakan defend themselves against the bandits. But Linda Wang was a little bit murmuring after hearing this. How can bandits attack a fortress as strong as Jia village? How could a master or a government official die? I think there is something fishy going on here, but whatever it is, it has nothing to do with him. He has already thought about it. After what happened this time, he must have a firm grasp on how Mr. Zhang can make Jiakan develop so powerfully in Jiakan. They, Lin Jiakan, can certainly do it too. This time when he came back, he had no selfish motives at all, and all the salt was sent to Jiakan. Mr. Zhang made arrangements and continued to make snowflake salt. After their strong men recovered, they were all brought to Jiakan. The two families had already started training together in the threshing floor. For them, these trainings have already become the skills that enable them to settle down and make a living. Zhang Xiaoxiao led a team of 50 people and set off with these snowflakes and salt. At the same time as her, Linda Wang and Li Shania were also set out. These two village chiefs were familiar with the roads, and they had to figure out how to find the way out. Zhang Xiaoxiao has now settled in Jiakan under the name Zhang Xiaoxiao. Of course, the name on the household registration is male. Li Shania knew that Ms. Zhang did not want people to know her identity as a woman. Li Taihua followed Zhang Xiaoxiao as a maid along the way to prevent any accidents. This time they transported 4,000 kilograms of snowflake salt to Jiangnan. They first took the land route, then changed to the water route, all the way to Jiangnan. It is said that the land in the south of the Yangtze River is fertile and beautiful, and it is simply a paradise on earth, with merchants gathering there. Even ordinary people's lives are richer than those in their border areas. They claimed to the outside world that they were sending food. The weight of grain is also very heavy, so it is comparable. But before they set out, people from the Wu family had already come to the door. This time, in addition to the biggest steward of their family, the people sent by the Wu family's carriage were also said to be the head of the Wu family. Zhang Xiaoxiao is depressed. Why is it so difficult to think about going out? Originally, she wanted to see the outside world, and of course she wanted to inquire about some things by the way, but who would have thought that she would never be able to get out of this circle? What can Lu Xiaoxiao say? The head of the Wu family came to visit her in person. Is it possible that a girl like her from a remote country could still be too arrogant to go see them? The head of the Wu family came in, and Zhang Xiaoxiao was shocked when he saw it. The person in front of him was clearly a young woman, and of course she must be older than her. She looked to be in her mid-20s. Theoretically, in ancient society, it was a male-dominated society, and women rarely went out to do business. Of course, women's status is not recognized by men either. Just like her current situation, if she hadn't been disguising herself as a man, I'm afraid Linda Wang would not have been able to suppress her first. Li Shania was naturally more or less conquered by his ability because he had saved his life. However, the status of women and men were not the same in this era. The Wu family was actually a woman. You can imagine how shocking this is. Mr. Zhang, I have heard of Mr. Jiang's name a long time ago, but I didn't expect to meet him today. I didn't expect that Mr. Zhang is such a handsome young man. He is really respectable and admirable. The real name of the head of the Wu family is Wu Xiaomin. Being able to sit on the position of the head of the Wu family, it was naturally a battle. Since she is dressed as a young woman, it is natural that she stayed in the Wu family as the first daughter of the Wu family to recruit a son-in-law. Wu Xiaomin is the only bloodline of the Wu family. There are no male descendants of the Wu family, and she is the only daughter left in her generation. In order to preserve the bloodline of the Wu family and prevent the Wu family's collateral branches from coveting their direct branches of the Wu family, Wu Xiaomin boldly decided to recruit relatives to stay in the Wu family. It was only then that the current situation of the Wu family came into being. Of course, Wu Xiaomin is not a kind person. She is naturally unique in being able to reach this position today. One glance at the young man in front of me, and I realized that this was probably not a young man, but a girl. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled. Since the other person is a girl, it would be better for them to sit down together. I felt like old friends when I met Sister Wu today. In that case, I wonder if Sister Wu is here to give me any advice. Zhang Xiaoxiao could already tell from the meaningful look in the other person's eyes that they had already seen through her identity, but it was a consensus that everyone knew. Young Master Zhang calls me sister, and I really deserve it. Did you come here this time to hear that Mr. Zhang is planning to lead a caravan to Jiangnan? Zhang Xiaoxiao understood instantly. Recently, she had already started to organize people. She removed some smooth, smart, and discerning young people from each village and sent them directly to Yanmen Pass. Even if it's a small business or something else, in order to disguise your identity, you just need to stay in the city. Zhang Xiaoxiao also specially spent money to build several small courtyards to make it easier for them to stay in the city. They even set up 2 shops to facilitate their delivery of messages. The only purpose of staying in the city is to inquire about news. They are not required to earn much money. Zhang Xiaoxiao will even give them money, just to have his own news network. I have already found out that the head of the Wu family is very powerful. The Wu family was very prosperous. In Yanmen Pass, the Wu family was considered the largest imperial merchant. The Wu family's business spread all over the country, and their network of relationships was intricate with officials from various government offices in the DPRK and China. It is said that the person standing behind the Wu family is a certain elder in the court. Just because of this person's face, no one else dares to make things difficult for the Wu family. It is also the joint that enables the Wu family to make their business bigger and stronger. It is said that the only son of the Wu family is just 13 years old this year and is already the #1 scholar in the court. This Wu Xiaomin actually came to find her, a young man from a small village. The purpose was obviously self-evident, it was for the snowflake salt in her hand. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 938. Chapter 938 Cooperation. Master Wu, since you are here, go straight to the point and go straight to the point. My little brother will not make any excuses. We are indeed planning to sell our snowflake salt to Jiangnan. In this case, the price can at least double. We are all ordinary people. It's just for living, I just want to make more money. Wu Xiaomin admired the young man in front of her. No, the girl in front of her was smart, and had a cheerful personality. She did not avoid it at all, nor did she cover it up. Instead, she put her words on the table. Mr. Zhang, since you are clear and don't tell secrets, I naturally won't hide it. The purpose of my visit this time is for the snowflake salt in Yurljiakan. You sell the snowflake salt to Jiangnan to make more money. In this case, then sell the snowflake salt directly to our Wu family. On top of the previous price, we can add another 5 taels of silver to you. Of course, there is still some distance between doubling what you want. Once you reach Jiangnan, you can naturally do it, but the carriages, horses, and manpower spent along the way will all cost money, and the profits gained after the expenditure will naturally be discounted. Why don't you just sell these snowflakes and salt to our Wu family? The rest of the consumption of chariots, horses, and manpower will be borne by our Wu family. For both of us, it is a win-win situation. I wonder what young Master Zhang is thinking? Zhang Xiaoxiao pondered. Her purpose was to get information from the outside. It is not necessary to go to Jiangnan. Compared with the advanced technology of later generations, in ancient times, a long journey by boat was indeed a difficult journey. Even now, Zhang Xiaoxiao is still not used to riding in a carriage. Not everyone says that it is easier to enjoy the shade with your back against a big tree. The Wu family in front of you obviously has abundant resources behind it. If they both cooperate, they might be able to get what they want. Master Wu, it's not impossible for us to cooperate. However, Master Wu, I would like to add a condition to our cooperation this time. Wu Xiaoman smiled and said, Master Zhang, please speak. The handsome young man in front of him would only have a problem if he didn't have any conditions. I just need the reports of each residence for each 10th day. This request was beyond Wu Xiaoman's expectations. The people Dibao needs are the patriarchs and officials of some big families, in order to gain insight into the trends of the court, but what does a country boy want? That's easy to say. Wu Xiaoman didn't think too much. This was a simple matter. No matter what the other party's purpose was, it would not harm the interests of the Wu family. Moreover, the other party obviously had a way to improve the black salt and coarse salt. Otherwise, it would be impossible for snowflake salt to appear in large quantities. She has already asked people to investigate the fact that Jiakan can make homemade snowflake salt. No matter how meticulous Li Shiniu and the others are, they are still country boys. How smart can they be? How could there be no news about her manpower? After investigation, it was found that Jiakan was originally a salt dealer selling private salt. These private salt dealers are now able to produce white snowflake salt, which proves that they have the formula in their hands. The most obvious change in Jia village is that there is an additional Mr. Zhang in Jia village. This young Master Zhang happens to be a woman disguised as a man, so the most likely possibility is that this young Master Zhang is a young lady from a certain family in the court. You can tell from the other person's conversation, momentum, and demeanor that she has a good conscience. Good education. Completely different from ordinary country villagers. In this case, why can't we cooperate? Perhaps the other party is a young lady from a certain family who is in trouble. As long as the other party does not violate our own interests, it is not a bad idea to cooperate with each other. Now she really needs the salt road of Suihuian to open some roads in the court for them, and of course it is also to clear up some people who have ulterior motives for coveting the position of the head of the family. In this case, why not join forces? The two parties re-entered into a contract. This time, the snowflake salt was sold to the Wu family for 15 taels of silver per caddy. The existing more than 4,000 kilograms of snowflake salt had originally been loaded onto the carriage, covered with some grain bags. Now all of them have been loaded onto the Wu family's carriage and were transported directly by the Wu family. 4,500 kilograms of snowflake salt were directly given to them, 67,500 taels of silver. The remaining snowflake salt will be delivered 10 days later. Wu Xiaoman said goodbye. Sent Wu Xiaoman off, Zhang Xiaoxiao sighed. Fortunately, Wu Xiaoman can still provide her with some information, but it seems that she has to find a way to open up an information network across the country. If she relies solely on the Wu family, it will not be reliable in the future. Some of the news she wants is probably something no one would have thought of. Zhang Xiaoxiao was not stingy after receiving such a large sum of money. The silver was directly divided into 3 parts. The snowflake salt belonged to Jiakan, Lin Jiakan and her. Of course she also took out half of the silver and delivered it directly to Li Shiniu as before. Let them continue to allocate part of the money, in addition to improving the housing conditions of each family in the village. The other thing is to continue to help Linjia village repair the city wall, and to continue to find some refugees in the city. Now that you have a lot of money, why not expand the village? With more people, they will build a richer place here. I didn't see it, but the 400 of them had cleared out 400 acres of wasteland. These 400 acres of wasteland are enough to feed the whole village. Zhang Xiaoxiao wants to improve these wastelands. Of course, wastelands are indeed wastelands, and it is also a fact that they are barren. The biggest reason why people cannot live is the land problem. The soil quality of the land watered by the spiritual spring water in the space has indeed been improved, and the rice seeds produced in her space will be more fruitful when cultivated. She has the ability to improve the world. Why not do what she can so that more people can live a stable life? Take this opportunity to select some good seedlings from the refugees and spread them out intelligently to form the network she needs. This is also the only way Zhang Xiaoxiao can get manpower. She cannot disrupt the daily lives of all the villagers and force them to do things for her. This is not appropriate. On the contrary, the lives of the refugees will be guaranteed. There is still money to live a stable life that was rarely available in the past. They just need to inquire about some information, without any risks or dangers. Many people are eager to rush to live such a life. Besides, more refugees know that Mr. Zhang is here to guarantee their lives. They are willing to work for Mr. Zhang, even if it means letting them die. Of course, these people who go out have been trained in advance. First of all, they must have certain skills. She also needs to go through some special counter-investigation training. These are the learning experiences Zhang Xiaoxiao got from Song Moding. Of course, her son and daughter also taught her some experiences. Now use it all to train these people. Presumably this will be an elite team. Although they are not as good as real scouts, if they want to show off, they may have real abilities. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 939. Chapter 939, The Stall is Getting Bigger. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at the De newspaper in his hand. Recently, a new Crimson Flame God Lord has emerged. He has hundreds of thousands of soldiers in his hands. It is said that he is very skilled. The Crimson Flame spear in his hand is almost unbeatable. The court is very troubled and wants to surrender. Unfortunately, he refuses. It is said that Crimson Flame Lord is very powerful. Flame God Lord is very tough. It means to be the Emperor yourself. His Majesty the Emperor was very troubled and sent troops to exterminate them, but they failed several times. Red Flame Spear. Number 9 jumped out. Sister, it's number 10, probably number 10. The red flame gun is No 10's attack method that can convert energy. It must be No 10. Zhang Xiaoxiao was stunned. Who is the red flame god? Why does number 10 help this person? Obviously, number 10 is now helping the red flame lord. What this person wants to do is already obvious, which is to rebel and dominate the world. Zhang Xiaoxiao doesn't care who is the emperor in this world. But what matters is how to capture number 10. What if there is such a big backer behind number 10, who wants to achieve a generation of hegemony and become an emperor who will be remembered forever? She wants to take away the strength that others rely on. This is obviously going to be a confrontation. With the people at her hand, fighting against the opponent's hundreds of thousands of soldiers, it's like an egg hitting a stone. Zhang Xiaoxiao has a headache. Sister, I can only deal with number 10 and recover it quietly when it is not paying attention. But once he discovers that we are here, he will probably escape quickly. Number 9 is like a child who is at a loss. He feels that he cannot help Zhang Xiaoxiao and is a little pitiful. Zhang Xiaoxiao comforted it. Xiaju, don't be afraid, we will definitely find a way, don't worry. Actually, it's all my fault. If I could have caught number 10 earlier last time. If I didn't reconnect with him, number 10 wouldn't have been able to escape at all. Xiaoju blames himself. Zhang Xiaoxiao shook his head. This is normal. It is difficult for anyone to predict the consequences of every development. Since we encounter this situation, we will find a way to solve it. Don't worry, sister has a way to solve this kind of thing. No, is it just hundreds of thousands of people? He has hundreds of thousands of people, can't I get hundreds of thousands of people? Zhang Xiaoxiao proudly patted his chest and promised. Xiaoju jumped for joy. Sister, is it really possible? Can. Then I can rest assured, sister, I'm going back, I'm going to make a weapon to capture number 10, I won't miss it this time. After saying this, he disappeared without a trace. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled bitterly. Despite the arrogance she just said, she actually got hundreds of thousands of people. This was no joke. The hundreds of people in the village now feel a bit of a headache, let alone the hundreds of thousands of people under their control. And to confront the opponent, it is obvious that what she will face in the future is war. With her current skills, simple training of soldiers can certainly be done, but for her to be a general, especially ancient wars are different from modern wars, and they need to arrange their troops. Formation requires various strategies. With her IQ, it is no problem for her to be a doctor. Zhang Xiaoxiao is 100% sure of how many people she will save, how she will save them, or what means she will use to save them. But now, things like war are simply embarrassing for her as a doctor. It's not my old job. It seems that the top priority is to change the direction and think about it first. She needs talents, a lot of talents, and recruiting talents is her primary goal. At present, we rely on Li Shiniu and Linda Wang. Obviously, it is no problem for these two people to be leaders in a small way. If we really rely on them to lead troops to fight, there will probably be a big problem. Moreover, it is necessary to recruit troops and buy horses. To recruit troops and buy horses, you must have a large amount of money in hand. There must be food and grass. If food and grass are needed, then there must be a stable food route so that food can be purchased to support future battles. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaoxiao felt that his head was very big. How could this kind of thing become more and more complicated? And it is obvious that if this is a plan, the plan has grown from the first 2 pages to dozens of pages. Zhang Xiaoxiao returned to the house and secretly worried. Horses. Zhang Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. At the moment, she can't be too anxious, and nothing can be done in one go. If you want people, in addition to recruiting refugees on the one hand, on the other hand, of course, you can find the large and small bandit dens in the surrounding areas. These people have at least dozens of people in their hands, and at most there are hundreds of people. These people were recruited into her place and they became just like people. Slowly begin to expand the manpower. Of course, in this case, we have to see how we can find generals who can actually lead the troops in war. Since we have talked about this dynasty, it is a troubled time now and there are many corrupt officials. Naturally, those talented people who have unrealized ambitions will feel aggrieved in these troubled times. I don't have any other skills, but I have read a lot of books and passed through a lot of things. The simplest thing is not to mention the many palace scheming and strategic dramas in later generations, even the number of talents in the famous book Water Margin a long time ago. Which one of 108 is not restricted by his origin, and which one is not the one who finally chose to become a bandit out of desperation? Since this is the case, this troubled world must also be the same. She should first sort through the prisons in their city, maybe there will be such talents. Zhang Xiaoxiao made up his mind. Convened a meeting with Li Shiniu and Linda Wang. With money in hand, the city wall of Linjia village has been built recently. Their city walls were built stronger and more stable because Linjia village and Ljia village were almost adjacent to each other, and there was actually a river between the two villages. This time after their city wall was built, it encompassed a large area of wasteland. Furthermore, according to Zhang Xiaoxiu's instructions, many refugees were also recruited from the city. On the one hand, the refugees can build city walls, and on the other hand, the refugees can open up wasteland. All the strong men between the two villages were gathered together for training. After they were dispersed, there was no distinction between Jia village and Linjia village. They were all divided into small teams, with 10 people in groups. Each 10 people had a squad leader to lead the training. Of course, these squad leaders were all old people, real old people trained by Zhang Xiaoxiao. They have already mastered the training skills and have gone through battles. They know how important these training skills are for their future battles. In addition, Zhang Xiaoxiao has always told them that they rely on mountains to eat mountains and water to eat water. They rely on the dozens of mountains behind them. These mountains are densely forested. Generally, villagers rarely go up the mountains unless they go to collect firewood. Old hunters also go up the mountain with many people. There are too many wild beasts on the mountain, but for them, this is a rich resource, and all their meat depends on going up the mountain to hunt. Of course, Zhang Xiaoxiao can't keep pulling wool like this. Now they have started to raise chickens and pigs in the village, and there are even people who go to the river to fish, shrimp and crabs. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 940. Chapter 940 Wanted Criminal. Li Shenyu and Linda Wang accompanied Zhang Xiaoxiao into the city with more than a dozen people. The city in Yanmen Pass is the largest and most prosperous city here. The city gates are tightly guarded and guarded by officers and soldiers to check the people coming and going. There were several portraits posted on the city gate. Zhang Xiaoxiao walked closer and looked at them carefully. It is said that he is a wanted criminal. However, the method of this portrait obviously needs to be improved, and there is really nothing visible about it. However, there was a portrait of a woman that made her stunned. Not only did the woman look similar to her, but she recognized her name, Zhang Suimei. Haha, it turns out she bears the name of a wanted criminal. There were 3 men next to him. One was a white-faced scholar named Li Yu. There are 2 others who look like Lian Jiazi, strong and tall. Looking at the introduction above, it is said that these 2 men were rebellious generals and both were good at leading troops in battles. One was named Lu Zhija and the other was named Li Qishan. Zhang Xiaoxiao thought. In Zhang Suimei's name, could she recruit these people to her side? At a glance, one could tell that Zhang Suimei must have an extraordinary background. Since she was on the wanted list for treason, it meant that she was implicated by her family members. That must be an official in the court, you can tell just by looking at the 3 wanted people. They should be generals and officials who are closely related to their family. If such people are around, they should be able to help her. The question is, where can she find these people? The more important issue is that she is not the real Zhang Suimei. She doesn't know whether these people have seen Zhang Suimei. Once her identity is revealed, it will be a big problem for these people to be willing to help her sincerely. It's really urgent. When it was finally their turn to enter the city, they heard the general guarding the city carefully examining their faces and waving their hands to indicate that they could leave. Master Hu, why do you think they insist on arresting this young lady from the Zhang family? It's really strange. This Zhang Ji elder has already had his house confiscated and beheaded. What can happen even if a young lady is living outside? Not even a woman. Let it go. Zhang Ji was considered a powerful figure and a popular figure around the emperor back then, but he ended up like this. I heard that none of the hundreds of members of the family survived, and all the family members related to them were also in trouble. Closed and exiled. I heard that the young lady of the Zhang family was young, raised in a boudoir, and never saw outsiders. What use can such a woman have? Why did the court spend so much effort to catch her? An officer and a soldier were whispering to the little boss sitting on a chair. The sound wasn't loud. If Zhang Xiaoxiao didn't have very good ears and her physical fitness was much better than that of normal people after being strengthened by dragon crystals, she wouldn't have been able to hear it at all. Zhang Xiaoxiao walked very slowly. What do you know? Mr. Jianga's students are all over the government and the public. I heard that many generals are students of Mr. Jianga. Although Mr. Jianga is old-fashioned, he has a bold temperament and is kind to others. As long as he can help someone, everyone will help. Many people have benefited from Mr. Jianga. He is a completely good man. Who would believe that he is plotting rebellion? But those people in the court didn't like him and put him on charges. Who asked the emperor to change people? Naturally, it was a new generation replacing the old one. He was still sitting there, one person was the king. Of course it will be an eyesore to many people. The reason for arresting his daughter is because this is the only bloodline left by the Zhang family. I heard that this daughter has a seal in the hand of Zhang Ji. Once this seal is used to summon Zhang Ji's students, they will join the army. I don't know how many people will rise up. Will the emperor still be able to hold his position by then? Naturally, we have to catch this young lady from the Zhang family, but I've also heard about it. Many people have never seen Miss Zhang, and this painting is based on word of mouth. But in fact, this Miss Zhang has always been very weak, hiding in her boudoir, or even in the back house. She rarely attends women's gatherings, so many people don't know what this Miss Zhang looks like. How can you possibly find someone if you just look for him like this? I would rather that Miss Zhang go far away and live a good life, and not get involved in this muddy water again. Zhang Xiaoxin suddenly moved. This is not good news, since not many people have seen this Miss Zhang. Then maybe she could find a lot of talents by taking advantage of Mr. Zhang Ji's prestige. I heard that the white-faced scholar on the wanted poster has been caught. Why is his portrait still hanging? We've caught him. I heard he's locked up in the prison of our government office. But how do we know what Mr. Futai is thinking? Since his portrait is allowed to be hung, let's hang it. Maybe it's to appease him. People's hearts. Then this time our Lord Futai has made great achievements again. I don't know if he has made great achievements, but I have heard that in the past 2 months while he was locked up, our government prison has been robbed twice by others. I heard that many people died. Man, and this man has very hard bones. 18 all kinds of torture instruments were used, but this man actually didn't utter a single word. It is said that refusing to admit his teacher is a serious crime of treason. Such people can only be sent to Beijing to wait for the emperor's fate. We still hope to get rid of such people as soon as possible, otherwise it will be our turn to take responsibility. You may not be able to escape from prison when you are in prison, and you may not know how you will die. I still want to live a good life. Isn't it good for my wife and children to be on the hotbed? What are you doing to risk your life? Brother who is right, we should live our lives well and live steadily. Life is not valuable in this world now, so it is better to live well. Zhang Xiaoxiao asked Li Shiniu to drive the car directly to Fukan where they bought a small courtyard. This small courtyard was inconspicuous and neatly tidied up. It was a 2-entry courtyard. On weekdays, there is a couple living here. The two make a living by doing small business and walking around the streets. They are also Zhang Xiaoxiao's most powerful informants. Seeing Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shiniu coming, the couple were very excited and directly greeted them into the yard. After sitting down, he hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed to Zhang Xiaoxiao. Everyone knows that Mr. Zhang provided for them. If it weren't for Mr. Zhang, they would have died of hunger long ago. Although I walk around the streets and alleys to do small business every day in the city, it is actually not hard at all, because my superiors have told me that doing business is secondary, and the most important thing is to integrate into the life of the city. To understand the geographical situation of the city, it is even more important to find out all kinds of gossip. Unexpectedly, they would see Mr. Zhang today. As soon as they met, the couple knelt down and kowtowed. End of this chapter.